But what were you going to say?
No, so like one thing, what do you think about some companies, the gaming companies, saying that, like for example, EA hadn't put in a statement or anything like that. They said that they would rather not touch politics, and employees in the company threatened that if you don't say something, we're going to walk out. How do you feel about those the gaming companies doing that?
I mean, employees have. I think EA has every right to be like, "Yo, we don't want to stick our foot in that." Even when the Black again, everything that was going on 2 years ago, they did put out a statement. They said they were going to put out money. I've been trying to dig into whether they've actually donated any money to anywhere, and I haven't found anything yet. But they said something during that. If they're like, "Hey, we don't want to get political," that's kind of weird because they've gotten political before. So with this, I think it's the employees' right too to be like, "Yo, we want you to say something. This is important to us. We work for your company." If they want to maintain, they've been fixing their image over the last few years. And so if they want to maintain that, they want to be in good standing with not only their company, but the public eye, then maybe they should say something. Did they come out and say anything?
They did say they went out and supported gay rights and women's rights.
So it was like a very cookie cutter written by a lawyer type thing.
Exactly. Okay. Not necessarily pointing at Roe V. Wade decision or overturn, but specifically saying hey, any decision you make. And so did Microsoft. So Microsoft didn't mention anything about Roe v. Wade, but did say that we support under the law any the free will of women having, getting to choose what they want to do with their bodies. That's basically what they said.
So, I mean, they're saying it, but
it's
they're not
very
saying
general.
it.
Yeah,
it's like this really tightrope that they have to walk. And I get it, right? So you didn't want to say anything. Again, as a company where you're weighing those pros and cons, right? To say something is to take a position, and you can be attacked for whatever position you take. So
it's hard, right? Because it seems like even was overturned, it seems like there are people on both sides that are in favor of one or the other. And as a company, regardless of how each side feels, they support all sides because they're a company, they're a business.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to, I don't know. I think maybe it is wise for them because it doesn't really affect them anyway if they come out and say something in support of Roe v. Wade.
It really doesn't. When they talk about pledging money or they talk about what they're going to do, or if they allow they're allowing their employees to volunteer for certain causes and stuff and still get paid at work and stuff like that, it's never at this really substantial amount that will hurt them monetarily at all, right? I think for EA said they were going to, it was either EA or Good Old Games. Again, I was researching kind of that thing we were talking about before, and they were like, hey, we're going to give money to bring Black people and other people of color into the gaming industry and stuff like that. They some $200 million, which is not insignificant, but it's insignificant to them. You get what I'm saying? So they're playing it safe. They're always playing it safe. So yeah, I'm looking at the PC gaming article right now. Bungie, Ubisoft, Bethesda, EA, and others speak out in support of abortion rights in the U.S.
Exactly.
I haven't seen any of the actual tweets, and that's something I'm actually gonna bring up. Humble from Humble Bundle, they said they're going to do something as well. Xbox will remain committed to our employees and ensure equal access to healthcare.
There we go.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of places are coming out.
It's very, very general, but still.
But they're not taking a hard line, but they're playing it safe. It can be seen. It can definitely be skewed as these companies are woke and things like that, but I don't think that falls. I don't think it falls under that, simply because this is more about again, bodily autonomy and like how much power does the state have over what you can do to yourself? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like, like if you, this is my opinion, but if you're okay with the state saying that you can't have an abortion, which can effectively lead you to die from complications from birth, there.
Oh my God, yeah.
Then you're okay with the state. You should be okay with the state saying you can't practice this religion. You should be okay with the state taking away your guns. Like this is that kind of level of decision that they're making. Like if the state can say you can't have an abortion, what else can they say? So it's not just like even you can't sue. They moved it to where you can't even sue if you like your Miranda rights aren't given to you.
I foresee that abortion will always be an issue just because it is hard to define what constitutes as life. So that's the main issue that the states that people go through. So like I'm all for women's rights, but I think that there will always be an argument against abortion, and it always comes down to that.
I feel like politically, this is a non-issue, right? Somebody was able to take what people saw as a moral issue and make it a political issue, right? This isn't something that I think needs to be voted on, right? Like this shouldn't be a part of someone's platform to run for government, right? It's like putting on there like, I'm a Protestant and, I go to church at this church on this block, right? That shouldn't be a part of your platform. And I don't think abortion should be a part of someone's political platform. If you don't believe people should have abortions, don't get abortions. That's it. It's just like, when you hear like gun laws don't prevent gun crime. Abortion laws will not prevent abortion, period. So basically what you're doing is you're taking a safe way to do something and you're going to make it dangerous and more people are going to die. That's all this is going to do. So
absolutely. Again, I'm not saying that you're wrong. No. I'm just saying that it is. I foresee this always being an issue in the United States.
Yeah, as long as it's a political issue, as long as if we can't take this back to this being a part of someone's moral code or whatever, however you want to define it, if we can't take it back to being someone's personal responsibility over what they decide to do with their body, then because abortion has not always been an issue in the United States. People either did it or they didn't. Like this became a hot button issue because they knew they could get people to rally behind them on, like, if you're a one issue voter, if it's gun rights, abortion, stuff like that.
So I don't think that so abortion was, in the past has been frowned upon, right?
Yeah, it's been frowned upon, but it's never been a political thing.
Well, that's the reason why we had Roe v. Wade in the first place. Yeah. It became sort of political in that matter, because I believe it was in Texas that this person was asking for I guess questioning like how maybe anything medical on abortion or something to that effect. I don't know, and you're probably checking it out right now. Please.
Yeah, I'm looking to see when abortion became like an issue.
Hot topic?
Yeah, like when it became a hot topic.
Let me check. Roe v. Wade. We're talking about Roe v. Wade, and we don't even know.
Yeah, no, it's like we came to this very unprepared.
Yes, we did. Okay, so landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in which the court ruled the Constitution of the United States generally protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion. The decision, which struck down many U.S. federal and state abortion laws, fueled an ongoing debate in the United States about whether or to what extent abortion should be legal. Who should decide the legality of the abortion, and what role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be? That's basically a good description of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And in any case, after Roe v. Wade, that's when it became political, because it became a subject.
It was made illegal. It was made illegal.
It was it was made illegal. My understanding is that states have the right to choose whether or not they wanted to have abortion in their states. But then the federal government came in and said, no, abortion should be legal across the whole nation. Mm-hmm. And that's when it became a problem.
So again, because it's always been a more, like you said, it's always been like a moral issue, right? But it has been outlawed in the United States before Roe v. Wade. But again, like I said, when it doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal, people are going to do it, right? This is just like guns, in my opinion, right? There were abortion networks. There was like let's see here, an underground abortion clinic set up in New York and Chicago. In 1950s and 60s, the estimated number of illegal abortions ranged from 200,000 to 1.2 million per year. Mm. So, it's a lot. It's a lot. But again, like, it's something that's going to happen, whether it's illegal or not. It's something that's going to happen. And then, so what we're talking about is, are we going to provide a safe environment for it?
That's why I've always been supportive of. I always foresee this being an issue in the United States and something that will always divide us, regardless of how many times left and right scream at each other. It's very hard to convince someone that they are wrong, right? Yeah. So, like, I always see the best solution for this has always been to give free contraceptions to avoid even the issue of abortion. Like, or at the very least, give them the option.
So, again, I saw somebody break it down like this. People that are against abortion aren't pro-life. They're pro-birth. The things that people that tend to get abortions, whether, they're poor or not, they feel like they can't take care of the child. They might not be financially stable. They don't want to care for the child. Even if you're like, well, they can always put them up for adoption. That puts them into a system that isn't well funded and, can lead to kids being abused, not ever ending up in a home. And they're in the system their entire young adult lives, which sets them up for failure as adults. There are programs available for them once they turn 18. But a lot of them, because of, the way they're coming up, they don't take advantage of these things. So even outside of that, like if you're like, I'm pro-life, but I'm not going to spend any money out after, like, you have the baby, that's your bad choice. I get it. That's your bad choice. But you're also saying, like, you can't make a choice to fix your mistake, right? Like, you have to have that child. And not only do you have to have that child, you have to now be financially, emotionally obligated to a child that you didn't want. And again, this isn't something that I would advocate for myself personally. Like, you need to have if I got someone pregnant, like, you need to have an abortion. That's not something I would ever do. But
yeah, me neither.
Again, I understand people's position. Right. Like I could be empathetic to someone else's position. Like, hey, I this is not what I want in my life. I made a mistake. I can fix that mistake. And now the government's telling you that you can't. So if you believe in small government, this is government overreach. Plain and simple. Like if you're telling me that you believe like the government shouldn't be able to come in and take anything from you, and the government should be able to tell you what to do, and they're taxing you too much. Now they're going to spend tax dollars enforcing, this decision. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see it again. I'm going to stick to this one. I will always see this being an issue because it is also being used as a political tool.
Once it entered the political atmosphere, it's a done deal. It's just like a hot topic for guns, because you can't even like I own one gun. I plan on buying more, but I do support some things that would make sense, right? To kind of curb the issues that we have, right? But there are people that's the only reason why they vote, right? Abortion, guns. These are the only reasons why they vote. They're like, hey, I really don't like this one thing. And that's where the trap is laid, right? They don't like this one thing, and they're willing to go along with everything else. Go along with everything else that these that might be on that party's platform to save that one thing, right? Mm-hmm. If I ran on killing your dogs and making sure no abortions, like which one do you if you're one issue voter, you're okay with me coming in the house and shooting your dog? You know what I mean? Like that's the sense that this makes.
Yeah. I will say something. I will say something political. And one of the things that I do see is the way that it's being described. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the arguments. Some of the arguments on the left is that I don't like that a white male is making the decisions for us, right? And that is so. Like I see now that it's not only that's a bad argument to make, because a lot of the women.
Yeah, it has a lot of support from women. And they tend to be Christian. Multiple different races, like white, black, like.
And my other argument is like a lot of people in 2015 when then President Trump and presidential candidate Hillary Clinton were running, people that were voting for Bernie Sanders and were upset that Bernie Sanders lost decided not to vote, or decided to vote for Donnie T. And this is what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I wasn't surprised.
No.
I was upset.
I mean,
I was upset.
I was upset. They showed their hand. They showed their hand a long time ago.
I was upset, but I wasn't surprised.
No.
And people that are now upset, oh my God, my Instagram feed, my Facebook feed, all filled with Roe v. Wade stuff, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, if you were one of the people that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton back in the day, I know that you weren't a fan of her, but what did you expect? What exactly did you expect was going to happen?
I mean, again, it's frustrating. Like, a lot of this is frustrating. A lot of people are, even myself included, don't understand the nuances of like how this stuff works. But at the same time, like if you look at stuff historically, when like laws pass and when, it was like, oh, it's only going to affect this, those rulings are used to affect other things. Again, when I brought up, bodily autonomy for trans people, or, your privacy and in healthcare and stuff like that. Like, this is where it gets frustrating, because people are only thinking about the one issue, and they're only speaking about this one issue, but there's other things we have to worry about because of this decision. So it's now a wait and see, like what crazy thing is going to happen next. I don't know, man. Like they made several decisions this past week that are just like, yo, what is going on? Like you can't sue a federal agent or a cop for violating your rights, even though they did so intentionally. Even if you can prove it with evidence, like you can't bring that to court anymore. So they no longer have, even with the qualified immunity, they don't have to worry about civil lawsuits or anything. So it's like, yo, what protections as an American, what protections do I have for someone that's abusing their power?
Something new that passed, though, is gun legislation passed today, I believe, and signed into law. I don't know what it entails, but at the very least,
it would be
progress, right?
Definitely worth looking up. It definitely, yeah, like it. I don't know. It's weird. It's like this weird.
I listen, like with gun issues, it's always going to be another issue, right? Because it's a running theme. I even saw the other day license plate saying Second Amendment. So that's where we're living, right? But
like even with the Second Amendment, like when you go back and look historically, like the argument about it being a personal right to carry a firearm wasn't really debated until like, you know, early 1900s. Like before that, like you walked into a town like out west, people called it like the Wild West. It was common to like hand your guns over to the sheriff. You know what I mean? Like people just didn't want guns to be out, you know, and like I get it. You know, you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your family, but like there are things that we used to do in America that we don't do anymore because people made it a political issue. You know, like there are like gun control used to be a normal thing in America until people were like, yo, like they started making it a political issue and using it for fundraising and being able to influence politicians. It's again, it's a wild thing. It's frustrating as hell because money is king, and
it's so sad what's going on with the gun issues. But at the very least, I am optimistic in the sense that at the very least we got a bipartisan legislation.
Oh, good. Through. So like I gotta look this up because it's like, what did it do? Because
it doesn't, like, for me, it's like, you're probably right. It didn't do much, but it's doing something. And it's a stride for something bigger, right? It doesn't mean that we have to be completely like overhaul it, but little by little. That's how politics works.
Okay, so it imposes tougher checks on young buyers and encourages states to remove guns from people that are considered a threat. The measures enjoyed bipartisan support, with 14 Republicans joining Democrats in the House to approve the bill by 234 to 193 votes. The bill is now headed to President Joe Biden to be signed into law. So that's big.
Yeah,
is that it actually both passed that. It's making it up to the president. So that's really big. The biggest point here is just the tougher checks on younger buyers. Both the shooter in Buffalo and the shooter in Uvalde purchased their gun recently before, you know, going in and shooting, committing those murders. So, I mean, like that's a big deal. And then the suggestion or the consider, you know, that has no teeth. That's not going anywhere at all.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's a step, right?
It's like,
I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. They love to talk the big game, right? Like, we need big change. It hasn't worked out, right? Like right now, we're at a point where politics is up in the air.
Okay, so the reform includes tougher background checks on buyers younger than 21, $15 billion in federal funding for mental health programs and school security upgrades. I want to touch on that one.
Let me get this straight.
Funding to encourage states to implement red flag laws. So they're providing funding. That's a good one. And closing the so-called boyfriend loophole by blocking gun sales to those convicted of abusing unmarried intimate partners. So on the funding mental health, like I think these things are linked, right? There are tools. So like a gun is a tool. People see guns as tools. A gun is a tool to do things with, right? To kill people. A gun is a tool to kill people. If you want to kill someone, you don't have a gun, you can still do it. The tool just makes it a lot easier, right? But there are other tools to keep people out of that headspace.
At the same time, the guns are also used for entertainment. You know, some people just go to the range and just shoot.
Yeah, again, completely normal. I can take an axe that's used to freaking chop wood. I can chop up people. Right? It's a tool. I get it. I understand. This is a tool that has been used when it comes into the public eye. It's used to commit just atrocities, right? Get it, got it. There are other tools to help people stay out of this headspace. Therapists, coping mechanisms, resiliency, all those classes that we had, right? Just, by providing that funding I think is a step forward. I support universal healthcare, and that's not just for like physical health, it's mental health and stuff too, so that people can get help for stuff like this. Actually being able to have mental health programs in schools, I think is really, really important. The counseling practice that I used to work for, they work with the local county schools to do stuff like that. There was this big thing where like a lot of the Hispanic students, parents were getting rounded up and taken off, like deported, and leaving the kids. Like they were deporting the parents and leaving the kids, right? And these kids were messed up from like watching their kid, the people busting, they were getting caught at the school. So they were coming to pick up their kids. ICE shows up, takes the parents away. These kids are hurting mentally. And so, like, whatever you believe on that, that's not really the issue. I'm talking about the mental health of the kid. These kids are messed up. They need help. We don't have systems in place to not only care for them now that their parents are gone. And you could say, like, that's the parents' fault. They're citizens. The kids are citizens. We should be taking care of them. And then, they need mental health. They need mental health help as well.
I think that the issue with just mental health in general is that it is a complicated subject, right? Yeah. So like what you're saying is these kids suffer from mental health, but a lot of times these mental health issues don't really come out until much later.
Yeah, but it's easier. It's better than saying like trying to take care of something later. Like if I know there's a traumatic event or I can see a change in a child as a teacher, like you see these kids, every day or every other day, depending on their schedules, you might see something that you like, hey, I think you should go talk to the school counselor. Hey, I think you might need some help. Just noticing that thing and sending them in a direction where they have resources where the parents don't have to worry about paying for it. This is something that can happen to prevent something, either, the kid taking their own life or the kid taking someone else's life. Like this is something that needs to happen.
Yeah. So now that Roe v. Wade was overturned, it's another. Now, I was thinking about this, like, how is it going to affect the gaming industry? And like, if you think about it, right? So like now there's Justice Clarence Thomas. He made a statement where he is also saying like we should review issues with gay rights, issues with transgenders, and such, right? So like that's one of the things that he mentioned the cases in which they belong to, not the actual titles. But as the gaming industry, a lot of times it's covered by freedom of speech. But I remember when the gaming industry was at the very beginning, there was a lot of headache from the conservative side that they didn't like what they were looking like.
Mortal Kombat, Grand Theft Auto.
Mortal Kombat, Mass Effect. Remember when Mass Effect came out?
No, not
Mass
that
Effect one. So Mass Effect had a really big issue with, or at least the conservative side had a really big issue with the sex scenes.
Mm.
The sex scenes in Mass Effect, which by the way, they weren't big. They didn't show a lot. But there was still a sex scene in a video game. And I remember that Fox News lost their shit.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they lost their shit. But think about it. So now
it does open it back up. It does open them back up for people to kind of be silenced, depending on like if things are going to go like if this is the start of a trend of things being overturned, things that have been codified, into the American, law for a while, but they're going to be overturned. Like things are going to start being silenced. Certain things aren't going to be touched. When you start talking about in the gaming industry, like what subjects do they now like? There, a lot of gaming stories are starting to touch on broader subjects, like The Last of Us Part 2, with Ellie being gay and there being a trans character and stuff like that. You might start seeing less of that. solely because they don't want the pressure from government. Like they can take heat from fans all day, right? But like the government, hey, if you're seen as violating a law or something, you get hit with fines, hurt you politically, hurt you financially, stuff like that. So a lot of companies, a lot of AAA companies will probably start taking safer bets, man.
Yeah, I know that we're talking worst case scenario. More than likely it's not going to happen, but
I mean,
worst case scenario, I know, but
it's best to look at worst case scenario so it doesn't take you by surprise, right? Like when they're like, I don't know. Like then you got to think like a lot of, there are a lot of gamers that are in the queer community, right? That they're affected by this, like just as people within this gaming community, right? They're going to be affected by this. It's going to touch them. And it's kind of like, well, what do they do? You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, again, I don't know, man. I'm not,
I think that's what people don't really see, and I think everybody like from both sides are either too upset or too happy. That this will have repercussions. This will echo.
Yeah,
I
think we will be I think we'll have a lot more gray hair by the time we really start seeing the ramifications.
I already have gray hair, so
yeah, I have a few, right? But like I think I might be a lot older before we really see like the full ramifications of what's going on. But it's going to happen. It's going to have the legal precedent, and it's kind of a wait and see type thing.
Right now, again, unfortunately for me, though, that's kind of like at the back burner too. But we have, I hate to say it, we do have bigger situations around the world.
That's kind of why I said it's like a non-issue politically. It's like a non-issue. Like this upsets people. This is a big issue for people personally, right? But politically, internationally, like it sucks. It sucks for the people of America. But like,
I'm glad that you clarified.
Yeah, that. Like you have wars going on in Ukraine. You have, you still have like people dying of hunger. You still have like police brutality and like all this other stuff that's going on that needs attention. And people are blowing up about abortions. And it's like, it's important, but it's not important to everyone. Right. Like
I think for me, at least the most important thing is the war in Ukraine. I think depending how well Russia does, it might give leverage to China to go on ahead and attack Taiwan.
This is setting some scary standards, right? Like everybody's like waving their finger at Russia and they're doing sanctions and stuff like that, but nobody stepped in to stop it. So if you can stockpile resources, if you have good infrastructure,
and that's why when President Biden, when he was asked, and this is, it's not that so like when he was asked whether or not we would intervene if China tries to invade Taiwan, he said, absolutely, we will intervene militarily. There was some backtracking. But my understanding is that we have some treaties with Taiwan that allow us to do that. That kind of obligates us to intervene.
You got to remember that, like a lot of the focus militarily was also in the Pacific. Once with Obama, I'm not sure exactly how all of that went under Trump. I know. The last few years under Obama, there was a lot of buildup in the Pacific theater, both with the Navy, a lot of patrols and stuff happening in the Asian waters and stuff like that. So for me, it's been a concern for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So not to backtrack, but for me, that's always been the biggest issue for me.
Yeah. You see how, and again, like we're both straight males, right? I'm black, you're Puerto Rican. Like we both have concerns, and abortion isn't the top of that, right? Like I understand, like, and again, I get that like abortion is very important to people. I really understand that, and I understand the ramifications coming from that, but it's not my number one priority. And that's the part that sucks, right? Is that there are people that out there not empathetic enough to realize why this is a problem to some people, to half of the people in the damn United States, why this is an issue.
Hey, you're gonna have to edit this out. Give me a second because I need to get a charger. My battery's dying. Yeah.
Gotta go back to wire.
Give me just 1 second.
I'm not editing this part out. I'm not editing this at all. Yeah, there you go. Use the wire.
That's
use the wire.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. Back in business, baby. All right.
There we are.
Whew.
Yeah, part of that's going to stay in.
No, don't do that.
Oh man. But no, man. It's all complicated. It's all frustrating, and sadly, you know, you can't be an expert in everything. So, like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I know this, I know that, whatever. It's just like, hey, like this, all these different situations suck a lot. Because how can I, you know, like all I want to do is play video games and watch movies. Hands down. That's all I want to do. I want to watch Marvel movies and play fucking video games. That's all I want to do. But I have to work. I have to, you know, socialize with people and do these different things because I'm an adult, right? And then, you know, understanding that other people around me that I am interacting with are being affected in different ways by all these different things going on. You know, there's a threat of, you know, people going hungry because of the war in Ukraine. So it's like this, all this, you know, like when you sit back and you think about,
and it's affecting us too, right? The gas prices going up, like
that too. Like,
so like we're doing our part in the war in the sense like we're sucking this up, and we have no choice in the matter. But I prefer like paying higher gas prices than actually being completely in the war.
Yeah,
like being completely involved in the war.
When you look back at, you know, our involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, how tired a lot of people that we know are. Like, how many deployments did you know, I know someone with like 9. I know there's people out there with more. And like there's people like when I went out to Afghanistan, there were people that like stayed out there. They just kept up in their contract and they would just stay out there. They had lived out there for like 5-6 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they were making money, but like, how does that affect you when you come home and all this other stuff? So it's just like, do we really want to get involved with that again? And I don't think a lot of people do. There's some people that do.
For me, it doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then that matter. But I do understand what's going on right now in the United States, and if paying higher gas prices is the cost of not intervening the way that Ukraine wants us to do it, then I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the boat of like, hey, that's right over there, man. Let's give them some weapons and stuff, and like y'all. Yeah, I don't want to get fully involved, man. I'm still in the reserves, and it's like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But I mean, again, like it's kind of like this wait and see type thing.
Yeah, but I support.